Welcome back to The Key with Kim Mills, where we unlock strategies, stories, and little shifts that help you live and lead at your highest level. Today, I'm so excited. We're sitting down with someone who really embodies intentionality and sustainable success. Holly Haynes is a dear friend of mine. She is a productivity expert, systems strategist, marketing guru, basically someone who has helped thousands of women ditch overwhelm and design a life that they're really actually excited to wake up to. So as we step into 2026, a year that hopefully feels ripe with possibility, I wanted Holly here to guide us through some real tactical things, mindset systems, and simple daily rhythms that help us become our best. And trust me, you're going to want to do what she says. Holly, welcome.
Thank you. I feel like this has been a long time coming.
I know.
I'm so excited.
Me too. I feel like every time I sit with you, I walk away feeling smarter and feeling allowed to let go of some things. You just have that, you have that ability to help somebody say, like, it's okay to stop doing that and try doing this. So.
Oh, well, that's good. I feel like I need people to tell me that too.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to have the person, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about, I feel like life by design is something that you embody. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we all can try to say that, but it's really hard to do or even understand, like, how, if I'm living a life that isn't by design, how do I start doing that? So if you can think about people starting this new year, how can you start to take these big goals that you might have and implement them? Tactically.
That's like a very loaded
question.
Okay. So I like to share that, like, one of my favorite questions going into the new year, but also let's start with, I don't feel like you have to have everything planned out by January 1st. I actually think that's very stressful. And most people panic when they hear that. So I like to take things in like 90-day increments. So we talk a lot about quarters or like sprinting. My corporate background is in project management, so I tend to go back to that. But 90 days feels like much more doable to me than what am I doing next December? Who knows what that's going to look like. So I like to just take the pressure off first.
I mean, thank you for that. Because I am a person who I can't stand resolutions.
Yeah.
I don't love that people feel like everything has to change the second the calendar changes. So I love the grace.
I don't even like picking a word. I will pick a word, but sometimes I'll stick with the word for a long time. And I'm like, I don't want to change it. It feels good.
Yeah.
So I think just embracing that. But then the question that I ask all my clients a lot is what do you want your everyday schedule to look like as I always say a normal person? We're not talking about I want to work on the beach and drink mango margaritas all day long. That sounds like a great perfect day. But what's the everyday schedule of a normal day look like for you? And so when I started really digging into that, I feel like that's when a lot of things shifted for us, because I was I want to put my kids on the bus. I want to get them off the bus. I don't want to sit on Zoom calls or be in meetings for 17 hours a day. I want to see daylight. I want to be able to walk outside. And so I always start with that list. And it sounds really just simple and this is too basic. But those are things, the little tiny things that add up to make a really big difference. So I'll give you an example. When I left my corporate job, I was we're going to put this rule. I totally made it up. I was we're going to travel once a quarter, and it doesn't count grandma's house. That was just our rule. I have no idea where it came from. And I was if we do one thing, we're going to stick to this. And it's been 3 years. So we're going into our 4th year, and we've been to 11 different countries. I have twin daughters who are 12. And we've traveled every single quarter, and it has changed our lives. And it's because I sat down and did this exercise of well, what would this ideal schedule look like? Would I like to travel every month? Yes. What is that ideal? Maybe not. So hey, if we just made a rule to do it once a quarter, and you can call it rule, you can call it boundary, you can call it non-negotiable. Last year we were our non-negotiable is we're going to walk outside in January every day.
Ooh.
Which in Ohio, especially Columbus, is a lot. But if you do it, it will change a lot. And so I would just ask you what are those things to start with?
When you're saying this, it reminds me of that visual of what you're putting in the jar first, right? And so it's put those big rocks of more turning this upside down, even though we might be talking about business. Don't start with that. Start with the non-negotiables that you have with your life, and then maybe you can make it work around that, which is
we totally can make
it's
it work around
refreshing.
that.
That's so refreshing to you're proof of that.
Yeah.
But I do think sometimes people get stuck because maybe they've been doing it one way for so long that they don't even know how to shake that tree up. So I love that. And I also think on that quarterly trip, to me, it doesn't have to be international. Great if it is, but like where we physically live, I keep thinking like we're within 3 hours of so many cool cities, or even a little bit further, even if you're driving. Like it doesn't have to be super complicated. But I think what you're saying is you put it on the calendar and you stick to it and you don't let go of it.
Yeah.
And the experiences are what I just think it's what your kids remember. It's what you remember. It's really like where growth can happen. That's awesome. Very cool. All right. So let me ask you about mindset, because I think this is something, knowing that you jumped out of corporate, I think this is where a lot of people can get stuck, right? So what shift do you think really needs to happen before you can see meaningful results in whatever this change is that somebody's trying to make?
Yeah. I mean, if we use the corporate example, I think I had to take the pressure off. And that was really hard because I mean, I worked in Columbus in corporate for 22 years. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, it's like a lot of corporate friends there. And my husband stayed home with our girls. And for me to leave, it's like retirement, 401k, a family of 4. That's a big ask, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, what can we do to just take the pressure off? And so the number one thing that I do is, again, like going back to, well, what's a time frame that we can commit to? So for us, it was like if I left my corporate job for 1 year and no income came in, like not one thing, we would be okay. So like, what do we need to do to get that in place so that I actually left my job at the end of December? So like January 1st, I'm like, let's go. Like, I don't want to feel like I have to get up and sell every day or our family is going to not be sustainable. And so I like to pick these like little this was a big deadline, but like these little micro steps of like, okay, a year we'll reevaluate. This doesn't mean that I have to do it forever. It doesn't mean that like this is going to be the end all be all. It just means for the next year, these are the things that we have in place. So it takes the pressure off. Of course, I wanted to make money and wanted to be successful, and hopefully that I did, I think. But it's like,
you're doing it.
I want to make sure that like I don't wake up and feel like I have to do these 17 things. So I think picking a deadline, and it's probably shorter than you think. So another example I like to give to my clients is like if you want to hire somebody, like you don't have to hire them for the entire year. Like if you want an assistant to help you behind the scenes, maybe it's for a project or maybe it's for a 30-day period, and then you can like feel it out and you don't have to make this like huge commitment.
Yeah.
So maybe like a micro commitment would be my answer, and then it like takes the pressure off and you can kind of feel it out.
I love that. I think that whole notion of micro goals, I personally feel like it's an easier way to stick to things, because when you do say you're going to, whatever, try something new for a year, it's just the second things get challenging or hard, it's so easy to lose sight of that. But I do think breaking it down into smaller bite-sized pieces. I feel like I'm doing this right now with the kids that I'm coaching in swimming. It's like, their season on the whole, if you were to look at a 4-month period, feels like a huge grind. And if you're looking at it that way, I think you become unmotivated pretty quickly.
And overwhelmed. And what do you do when you get overwhelmed? You shut down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so instead, I'm trying to get them to look at like a practice that's just that daily thing. You got to put in the work, but like choose something within that practice to like really hone in on. And then the rest, like, just that's it. Like, don't worry so much. I mean, you can't get away from the work, but you can break it into these smaller bite-sized pieces that I think feel, you can get excited about versus feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah. So like 30 days, just pick one thing.
Okay.
And then follow through on that one thing.
One thing. I love that. Okay. So productivity obviously has a little bit of a buzzword, but I feel like it's associated with doing more, which is not always the best feeling. So can you define what productivity would mean to you, especially as a coach?
Yeah. I kind of want to go back to my 90 days, and I like to think of things in seasons. And so, a lot of times, like as a parent, you might have a season where your kids have extra things going on, or like if it's swim season
Mhm.
or tournament season or whatever that looks like. Or maybe as like a CEO of a business, you've got certain seasons where you know that it's a really intense, I don't want to say intense, but it's a popular time
Mhm.
for whatever you're offering. And so as a family, we usually sit down and think about the seasons that are going on for us. And so like right now, our girls are in middle school. It's an intense season for parenting.
Yeah.
And so I know like, hey, that's probably not the best idea to take on like a new project or something that might take more energy than I usually give. And so when I think about productivity, I like to think about, well, what season am I in? Or like what hat do I want to wear the most? Is it the business hat, the parenting hat, the friend hat? Um, we're recording this in December. I would say my friend hat has been on a lot. Like it's a season of like
Yeah.
getting to hang out and like reconnecting. And then, January, I think, is a season of recharging. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. They think of it as of a season of restarting. And if you're into like astrology and human design and like really into productivity, winter is actually the time when you're supposed to like hermit,
Hibernate.
hibernate. And
Yes.
so the last couple of years, I've actually tried to embrace that a little bit more,
Mhm.
and think about it doesn't always, your seasons don't have to follow the actual seasons, but it makes sense. Like if you think about like winter is the time to recharge and maybe plan a little bit more or do some things that make you feel good. And then spring, you think about like flowers blooming and it's like a fresh start. Maybe that's the time to start the project, not January.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling the pressure, again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning of like, I have to have everything figured out right now, I would be like, well, what season am I in? Is it a good season for me to want to do all the projects? It might be. Or is it a season where I can like take a breath and then come back to it?
And what everyone else is doing doesn't have to be your same timeline. I think
Yeah,
we
which
all
is
fall
so
into that trap.
hard.
I know, I really do.
Yeah.
I feel it in real estate. I think we start to feel this like um anxiety if you're not busy when other people are busy. But the reality is you might not be, and that doesn't mean that, I mean, it could be a sign of maybe something that's not going right in your business, but for
Yeah.
the most part it also could be your clients just aren't ready at that moment, and that's
Hmm.
okay too, you
Yeah,
know?
totally.
All right. So let me ask you, in terms of especially wearing your coach hat, what is the smallest lever, like the smallest lever that you think if someone would pull creates the biggest effect in someone's business?
Oh, um, follow-ups,
Oh,
like actually having a conversation with a person.
yeah.
And it's
Like
so
really doing the
funny.
follow up?
Yeah, like really doing it. And people will probably roll their eyes when I say that, but in a couple of the groups that I teach, we always have calls on Monday because it like sets the tone for the week. And we're like, what's the one thing that you want to do this week? And then like, what's the one thing that would move the needle the most? And instead of being like, well, I want to grow my list by 100 people, which is great. You should do that. Or I want to record a podcast or whatever. Like, if you wanted to make more money, like have a conversation with
Yeah.
somebody. And it could be as fun as like having a coffee date and just chatting because you never know like what that person has going on or, what they might refer you to. Or it could be even formal and, hey, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like, are you still looking for support or whatever your business might be? Um, but I think it's like the one thing we call it the eat the frog task. Have you read that book?
Yeah. Well, I haven't read it, but I do feel like I've heard this metaphor a lot in the last
Yeah.
6 months. Yeah.
It's like the one thing that you don't want to do, but it will move the needle the most, hands down, every single time. And so when you talk about productivity and seasons, I'm always like, what's the eat the frog task of the hat that I'm wearing? Like as a parent, what's the eat the frog task for today? Like I want to like make sure that I have dinner on time so my kids can go to bed and everyone is like happy in the morning,
Yeah.
right? Or it's like the eat the frog task is I am going to follow up with those 3 people that I met at that conference or event 2 days ago because that could move the needle forward. And so usually I try to start my day with like what are those
Eat
eat the
the
frog
frog.
tasks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that. All right. When it comes to systems, you are so good at this. I think you're good at identifying systems that could work for someone else, but you're also really good in your own business of automation and where you just know you don't necessarily have to touch things all the time. I feel like people get stuck in this. Like it's either I don't want to let go of something, or
Mhm.
I don't know how to create the system, or um, I don't want to create the system.
Mhm.
So, if you were to give some advice to listeners, what should they really be looking at in 2026 to just simplify and be more efficient in their work systems?
Yeah. Oh, I have so many
So many.
thoughts on this. Okay, my first one is, and it's a quote, and I'm probably going to mess it up, but everything works better when you unplug it. So if you think about like a computer that's crashing out, or, whatever is not working, what do? You unplug it, you restart it. And so if I start to feel this like overwhelming feeling, I know that I have to like step away, and step away could be like, okay, I'm not going to be on social media for a couple days, or I'm just not going to have any meetings for a day or two. Like, it can look different based on how you're feeling, but I think that's the first thing. The second thing, and it's so simple, is to do a time audit. And it's really, I think it's fun to do, just like open a Google Doc, and like as you go through your day, just write down the different things that you're doing. And then I like to call it do, delegate, delete, or defer. And so go through your list. And I actually just did this with a client this morning. She like came to me with this, like, it was really long. And I was like, okay, we can't do all of this, but let's, like, before we just like start crossing things out, like, can you give some of this to somebody else? Like,
Mhm.
that's the easiest way. And when I say like defer or delegate, I'm thinking like, can somebody pick up your laundry? Can you outsource meals, right? Like, there are things that don't have to do with business that you can delegate that will make your life so much easier. So that's step one. Step two is, what are the ones that you like absolutely have to do, like no one else can do? And guess what? It's like 2% of your list. So
Which is
I'm a
refreshing to hear for us
huge,
control freaks, right?
yes, like I'm a huge outsourcing fan. And that kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of like, you don't have to outsource it forever. Maybe it's just a season. Maybe it's just a month. Maybe it's just 90 days. Um, so do, delegate, delete. This was a great idea last month. It's not a great idea. I'm not feeling it. I'm just getting rid of it. And then defer. I don't need to do it right now. It's not a priority. If you do that exercise and you recharge, you're going to have a very different perspective, and you kind of like let the dust settle for a minute. Um, so that would be one approach. The other approach, and we could have a whole podcast episode about this, is I think specifically women in business need to embrace, like, how can we use technology to help us? So there's probably someone that's already done it before. Who is that? Can we ask for help? But also, like, AI is a thing, and there's a
Mhm.
lot you can do with it. And instead of being scared of using it, like, let's embrace it. Like, let's think about, how can I make my life easier with the things that I do need to do? And so that's one of the things that we've really leaned into. But I like to call it human first AI. Like, ask a person first, get an opinion, make it sound like you. We could do a whole podcast on this, but
Yeah.
that's where I would start.
Okay. I love that. What is one system or one ritual you think people massively overcomplicate?
I think since we're talking about planning, quarterly planning. It's because I think people sit down the first week of January and are like, I have to have it all done. I feel like when I took that pressure off, I was like, oh, 90 days feels doable. Like, between now and March, I can handle. Like, I'll come back to it. And so we actually do it as a family. I will go into my Google Calendar like right now, this season, and I'll block out like 3 hours for my husband and I. And it sounds nuts. Like, he'll open the calendar and be like, what is this? And it's like family planning day. He knows what it is now. But we'll sit down and we'll say, like, okay, what are you doing in your business? What am I doing in my business? Like, what's the kids' schedule? What do we want to do? When's our quarterly trip? And we can like work through it together, and then we can plan our businesses separately. But we're not having this like, what do we want to do this year discussion, because that stresses me out. Like, I don't know. Um, and so I think people overcomplicate that a lot. Like, planning does not have to be this stressful thing. And there are a couple questions that I specifically ask every quarter, and that is, what's working really well? Super easy. Those are the things we want to keep doing. Um, what did not go so well? Like, those are the things that we want to stop doing. So, like, if you have something on your schedule and you're literally dreading it every Friday, like, well, maybe we don't have to do that. Like, I joke that my girls have gymnastics class and it's Monday and it goes until 8:45 at night. And I am like a hermit after 8 o'clock. I'm like, I can't. So I was like, hey, could we just like alternate taking them to gymnastics? So like at least every other week.
Yeah.
But it's just like little things like that. So what's going well? What's not going well, and then what would feel really good right now. So just like checking in with yourself. And I mean, there's lots of other things you can do for quarterly planning, but I feel like those questions at least give you like a little bit of a look back analysis and like a gut check of, okay, now we can move forward like another 90 days.
That's awesome. The permission to do it in smaller chunks is it
Yeah,
feels
that
so
seems to be our
good.
theme.
I know. It does. It feels so good. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about you and your business and how you have done this, because I think it's easy from the outside to look at what you've built and like it's amazing. But I know there's like struggle
Yeah.
and questions and probably doubt that happen along the way. What do you feel like one of the biggest hurdles you have had? What is it? What was it? And how did you overcome it?
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like there's hurdles every day. So I do business strategy and marketing, and we started with a podcast in January of 2020, called Crush the Rush. And I recorded it in my basement. I remember like I had like a blanket over me. My girls were 5 in kindergarten. Um, I don't think we even had like a professional microphone at this point. And the day that it came out was the first day that COVID hit the United States. So I'm sitting here like, okay, like, do I release it? Do I not release it? Like, what do I do? I think I was talking about like a morning routine or something, and the world is like shutting down. And to answer your question, I was like, no, I'm just going to do it. And so I think the challenge is following through, but also that's the thing that like gets you to the next step. Because if I hadn't have followed through, we wouldn't have gotten the podcast to where it is today. The business would not exist as it does today. Um, but was I nervous to put that up there? Like, yes. Do I listen to that episode now? No. But I think it's having the confidence to follow through with what you thought was the best idea or the best next step, and kind of like tuning out the noise of other people.
And it's okay to have that feeling of being
Yeah.
scared, right? I mean, I was interviewing Barbie Coleman from Urban Sundry, and she said, yeah, like you got to do it scared, but like you got to be brave. You
Yeah.
just have to step into being brave in those
Yeah. And
moments.
I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like somebody listens to the episode and they're like, this isn't very good. Like, this is not like brain surgery,
Right.
right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
then you could be nervous. But I think following through.
All right. What about take us to a moment in your business where you were like, this is not working?
Mm,
I don't know what it would be. I mean, I feel like I have a lot of those moments, especially if
yeah.
I'm thinking now on these quarterly 90-day things. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, that's not working. But when you realized something wasn't working and how you sort of changed that with some maybe clarity, like you've been asking these really great
Yeah.
questions, maybe you had to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah. So I'll give the example. We have a program called Antisocial School, and the focus of that is to grow and scale a business without relying on social media. And it's really fun. I love teaching it. I taught it live for seven times. So 7 times over like 3 years. And people love it. Like they get great results. They're obsessed with the name, like to let go of social media. Like it felt really good. And I think it was one of those moments where like it's really good, but I know I could make it better. And also, I can't I mean, I could teach it all the time, but like I needed to figure out a way where I could still get really great results for our clients, but it wasn't me like hand holding
Mhm.
everything together all the time. Like I had to figure out a way where it wasn't just reliant on me. And so this year we actually like it was working really well and we broke it. And so this is like a year-long project. We started it in February and we mapped out of like, okay, if we still want the program to be like really amazing and get awesome results, like what would this look like? How would we build it? We rebuilt the whole thing. We redid the whole thing. We piloted the whole thing. We actually piloted it twice. And now we're just getting to the point where like it's running on its own. which is great, but like it's been like a whole year of fixing something that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think people are like, are you crazy? Like, why would you do that? But now I have more free time. I can also support more clients at one time. And it gives me the capacity going into this year to think about like, well, what do we want to do next? And so I do feel like through this process, like it was nerve-wracking because it was good and I didn't want to break it, but I also knew that there was something more. And so I think it always comes back to like listening to your gut. Like, you know what the next step is, and people from the outside might not agree with it. But then once you like hit the end and it's the way that you want it, they're like, "Oh, that makes sense."
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, it's like, it looks so pretty.
Yeah.
I love that you broke something that was working.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing is I think when you are very in tune with yourself, which you are, I think you know what isn't really going to be sustainable. And
Yeah.
so you probably saw that before anyone else saw that or
Yeah.
felt that before other people did. And so sometimes we do have to have the permission to just slow down to go fast.
Mhm.
I feel like I say that a lot to my kids. Like right now, um, they're both golfers. So like obviously in Columbus, Ohio, you're not going to be golfing outside from November to like March.
Yeah.
But there are other things that you can do. And so it's like you can slow down to then go fast. But I just feel like we have to remind ourselves that is,
Yeah.
it's okay to do that.
And it
And
was like,
actually, I think it's necessary.
yeah, it was like a year-long personal growth project is what I call it. Because I'm like, are we still working on this project? Like, why did I start this? And like, we just are wrapping it up now. And it's just like, okay, I know why I started it. So it's like keeping yourself motivated when maybe the outside world doesn't yet see your vision.
Yeah, it's really cool. Did you ever question, especially maybe it's the jump from corporate or maybe even as you've had these big milestones within your own company where you maybe question like, oh, am I on the right path?
Mm-hmm. Like monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for normalizing that.
Yeah, my husband calls it like the monthly crash out. And yeah, like all the time. Like I'm like a saying in our house is, "Oh, I'll just go work at Pottery Barn." I love Pottery Barn. I'm like, this would be so much less stressful. Like I could sort pillows and I would be so happy. Like decorate, love it. Like I could totally do this. And so when I start like quoting that, then the house is like, okay, it's the week. It's the week where we start to question everything. I think it would be weird if you didn't.
Well, but I do think we're hard on ourselves, right? I think when
Yeah.
you're, when you and probably your circle are top achievers, I think sometimes we forget that that's okay and normal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that a lot of people keep that inside, which is not great.
Yeah. Yeah, monthly. And now I notice it. I'm like, okay, it's the time of the month where I am questioning everything. Which if you go back to what I was talking about human design, like if you follow astrology and the moon and all of that, like it does sync up. So just kind of be aware of your feelings.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about perfectionism a little.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see with the, vast amount of women that you have coached, how common it is. How do you coach people out of it? What are some very tactical things? Like if we are so afraid to mess up or feel like, I don't even want to dip my toe in because I might suck at this. What advice do you have when it comes to that? Knowing somebody out there is listening to this and that is hitting them in the heart.
Yeah. My favorite saying is B- is passing. And honestly, it's a joke in our house now. And my daughter's like, well, C+ is also okay too. And I was like, you're right. It's totally okay. And where it came from is I was in grad school and I was in this really hard like statistics class. And I was just like, oh God, like if I could just get like a B- or a C+, like it's fine. And guess what? Nobody cares that I think I did get a B+ in that class, but like nobody cares. It doesn't matter. And so I always go back to like B- is passing. But you should not be good at it at the beginning. Like that's normal. And so I always, go back to, well, what season are you in? You're a beginner at this. You're going to get better the more that you do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I was talking to a client this morning and we were talking about emails and I was like, one of the big things to let go of is like having somebody else like do things for you. And I was like, does it matter that the button in the email is a different color than the color that I would normally want it? No, nobody cares. And so I always go back to like most of the time it's A plus. Like I like things to be a certain way, but like B minus is fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. What small decision could someone make today that could shift momentum? Like what's just like one tiny action? Because I do think these micro goals that we talked about and breaking things from that typical 12-month window to like 90 days, like what is one small thing that someone could do to like create a little bit of momentum, knowing that maybe they're stuck right now?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is consistency trumps talent. And it goes back to the practice of, okay, well, if I want to be really good at one thing, like what's the one thing that I could do for the next 5 days? And sometimes, like if we're talking about business, it's not business related. It's like, okay, if I can just get up and like do Pilates every day for 20 minutes, like I'm going to feel so much better. And then I'm going to have the energy to do whatever the thing is that I need to do. So I would say, like, pick one thing and do it consistently. My favorite metric is 30 days. So it's like if you're going to send a newsletter, like send it for 30 days and then tell me how it does. Or if you're going to do a podcast, like do it, for 30 days and then tell me what happened. So, yeah, I would say consistency. Pick one thing.
You have really good quotes. You do.
I feel like I live by quotes. Like they keep me motivated.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay. So automation, we kind of talked about, you're really good at this. When it comes to like templates or workflows, if someone, so this is, I just reread my Colby. I forget what, do you know what that is? The
Yeah.
Colby. Okay. So I just
The
reread
DISC
this.
assessment, is that what it is?
It's sort of like DISC, but it's you get a different number. But when I took this, I literally took it over a year ago. I just went back and looked, and it was about like my section on systems was really interesting because I'm not the best I don't really want to create a system. I just want to kind of follow a system.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know that I really knew that about myself. I mean, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense because if somebody will just give me the roadmap, then I will like jump into that. So what advice could you give to us if you're struggling with some kind of workflow, which I know this is very vague, but where can you say to yourself, ooh, I could automate that, or ooh, I could do away with that? Like, what are some of the filter questions maybe you ask yourself when you're creating workflows that you like?
I mean, I would go back to your list where we talked about like do, delegate, delete, or defer. And I would go back to your time audit and I would look at what are things that you're doing over and over and over again. So we can use podcasting as an example. We both have a podcast. When somebody signs up to be a guest, we send an email that says, hey, you're a guest. Here's what you can expect. Yes, you could manually write it, but could you save time if it was automated? And so I tend to look at like what are the things that I'm doing on repeat that I could create something. Sometimes it's a reminder on Alexa, right? Like that could be a system.
Yeah.
It could also be a routine where like, okay, every Monday I'm going to look at this, or it could be like an actual automation where, okay, I'm going to automate this and have someone or someone else do it.
So look for the do's on your time that you're doing over and over and figure out a way to not have to touch that every time. Love that. Love that. Okay. I always end with a little bit of like rapid fire.
Okay.
So don't feel like you have to think really hard on these, just whatever comes to mind. What's a morning ritual that you swear by?
Okay. I mean, everyone listening to this is in Columbus. We just got a sauna from Costco and I am obsessed with it. It has been on our list for so long. And I sit in it for 20 minutes every single day, mostly at least 4 or 5 times a week. And I started listening so I have the Calm app, but there's a new feature of the Calm app and they do these like EMDR, high frequency relaxation.
Oh.
I don't know what it does, but it's supposed to be really good for you. So I'm like, great. I'm going to play this in the sauna. And then I usually read in the sauna and I'm not allowed to take any technology inside of it.
Very
also,
cool.
It's in the basement and no one can bother you when the door is shut. So
you get some privacy too. Love it.
Yes.
All right. Favorite productivity myth to debunk?
I think everyone's productivity is different. Like sometimes being productive for me is not being productive. And like watching a cooking show
Mhm.
because I know that I like overdid it in another category. And so I think you get to define it.
Love that. What about one thing that you never compromise on your schedule?
Quarterly trips, which
Love
is
that.
life changing. I'm also really strict about Fridays, and I think that has come from corporate because that was like my dream of I would love to end the week where it's like my day. I can do whatever I want. And so I'm pretty strict about that.
Okay. What about a book, a podcast, a song, something that's inspiring you these days?
Mm. The book that I'm reading in the sauna right now is Toxic Grit.
Oh.
Um, and it's a take on wearing different hats in life. So it's like she calls it like the doctor, the caregiver, the parent, the CEO. And so it kind of is a productivity book, but I think it would be really inspiring for the beginning of the year.
That's awesome. Okay, one final question. If you had one takeaway for somebody listening to this beginning of 2026, what advice would you give to that listener?
Ooh. I mean, I would go back to the beginning and it doesn't all have to be figured out January 1st. Um, and there's a quote and I can't remember it, but it's basically like, what if the pressure isn't as much as you think? Right. So it's like, what if it's not as hard as you think it's going to be? And like, what if we just could figure out the next 90 days?
That's so awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Holly.
so fun.
Your words of wisdom, I feel like, I feel like I walk away at least a little bit more prepared to ask myself better questions to get a better result. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. You're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Please subscribe and share this with a friend so you don't miss the next conversation. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you. And until next time, remember the key is in the details and the journey is just as important as the destination.